Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Monday, and it is January 25th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. What a day! Um, just when you think the volatility's gone, a day like today creeps back in, and this was a massive sell-off. Really, we sold off from 38. We'll just call it 38.50, and we dropped all the way to 37.90. I mean, that's a 60-point move. And well, I'd say this started around 9:50 and it was over around 10 after 10. So in 20 minutes, we dropped 60 points. That's a pretty incredible move. Unfortunately, you couldn't get much of this first move safely. You were able to get some of the second leg, and you can see this first leg is pretty much this move, and then the second leg started right there. And we didn't quite get that second leg down. I think the market was way overdone by that point. And the buying comes in, and there's probably some previous support or resistance at that level. 37, I believe it was 37.90. Is that what the low was? 30. Yeah, right around 37.90. And if you go all the way back over here, that's this level right in here. So we had some support and resistance at that level previously, and we've tested that area a few times, or in that general area. And so interesting day, but not a lot of trades today. There's plenty of trades here, and if you just were patient, there's some good trades here as well, but you did have to be a little patient today. And you just can't chase this. And that's where a lot of people make a mistake. And somebody told me they bought this blindly, that they saw me do that on an old video. Well, I can't remember how old the video that must be, but it's got to be way back there. I'd never tell anybody to don't buy blindly. I mean, if you're going to buy, when you do buy blindly, you want a consistent range day that has been doing this, and we've tested this and bounced all day, and we've tested this and turned down all day. I mean, really, we only had one bounce at that price level previously. This is below it. You might say we bounced down here, and I mean, don't try to buy this. You know, there's not enough consistent support there to try to buy that. It's just not. And so don't try to buy blindly. Wait until you get a signal bar. I mean, you're just basically trying to pick a bottom. I mean, ranges are very predictable, but you want one that's been proven. And this range, I mean, even though this is a range here, you needed to see this bounce here again at least once more before you start looking to buy across here. I mean, obviously, if you'd got a good bounce here with a setup, you might take it. But, I mean, we're still in this down channel here that's working down. So there's no way you can buy blindly there. Just don't do it. So, but you can see the range we dropped out. We dropped that 60 points or so. Didn't take long. We rallied back and got back inside the range. And by the end of the day, we're almost testing the high of the range again. So crazy day. I imagine we're going to see a lot of this with all the craziness going on. But I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to back out here and go through the trades and wrap the day up. So make this big enough where everybody can see it. But clearly we were in a range at this point. We didn't have a lot of tests of the high. We didn't have a lot of tests of the low. But you put that on there, and you see how prices react. And you see we got a turn down here, but wait on the lower high and so forth. So anyway, let's go through the trades. When I came in, we'd been trending down. We had a little overshoot, a break, and a move to a new low. 7 o'clock came, I think, just as we're making this bounce right here. But you don't get a setup here. This is too neutral to go short, too much congestion. If you had a good signal bar here, it might have been a short opportunity, but it just doesn't happen. So first chance you get is to buy this low. And notice we made that low. We went a little lower, and then basically we made a double bottom, which is the same thing as a higher low, and you got a pretty good signal bar there. I made this one blue. You could argue for it to be green. It's real close, but you know, we've had a little support there. Look how far away we are from the EMA. You've had your break. You had an overshoot. You've had your break. We're probably going to shoot back to the EMA there. So I like that one. It's real close to be, you could argue for it to be green. It's real close there. But if you catch that one trade, I've talked about this before, if you can catch those breaks like that fell lower. And notice too, we did have a little gap here before where we closed on Friday and where we opened Sunday night, and notice how we came back and filled that gap and tested that low before we went higher. It's technically not a gap on the chart, but it's just a gap between the open and the close. So, and you'll see those get filled occasionally too. They're not as important as the gap on the daily chart, but still something to look at. But anyway, you get that long, and if you catch this one trade, you probably get a runner, and you can ride this. I'd exit when we hit this congestion, most likely. We run up. There's no good reversal pattern here. It doesn't come till here, and you can't enter a reversal like that. That's not a good reversal pattern. But notice how we made that low. We kind of start going sideways. We test it once, and then we test it twice. And the key is, do you have enough room to get out? Which you have just enough room there, so that's a good trade. And then you turn down off the highs with a double test. And again, do you have enough room? And you got just enough room. This one ends up getting a little more out of it, but you could have got a nice runner out of this one. There is a failure here. Notice you're working down first entry, second entry, but that's just too congestive. You can't go short there. Signal bar is not very good. Of course, on a failure, we don't care about the signal bar, but you don't want to enter in congestion. This time it goes far enough that you could have actually gotten something out of that. And it's real tempting to go long. If you want to be aggressive, that little break lower out of that congestion would be the kind of place I would do it, because we haven't hit the high of the trading range and we didn't hit the low here either. So we're probably going to at least come back and test this low and maybe here. I like waiting on a higher low, but you don't get one till way up here. And so you might take that one as an aggressive, and then this higher low, you might even take it because it does break lower and turn and go out the other side. The only problem was it didn't break higher on this next bar. I don't think I would trade that on an engulfing bar right into the EMA, right back close to this support resistance, because that's probably what we're coming back to test at a very minimum. We end up going higher, but at this point, I'd be expecting that we're coming back to test this before we maybe go back lower again. So you got to be real careful going long right there. If this would have broke higher, maybe you take that trade, but not like that. We run up. We do get a break of this two-tiered channel here. Unfortunately, you don't get a very good setup. There's a nice signal bar there, but again, that's kind of congestive. It's just a first entry. Just not anything that I think is worth taking, especially right into that resistance. If you expand this over, you can see we're kind of back in that range, and it's acting as resistance. It does break on out, but now you can just trade this as a failed break higher that is also testing this overnight resistance up here, as you can see. So it's a little bit aggressive to go short right there. You could take that trade, but that's there's just one leg up there, and sometimes you get a second attempt. So wait and see if you get a lower high and a second entry short, because that is a new swing low. It's lower than that one, so that's a new one. So first entry and then second entry, it's a lower high, and at that point it's a little congested, but at that point it doesn't look that congestive, as you can see. You don't really have a lot of proof that this supports here until we bounce there again. And so I like that, just looking for that next leg down and maybe catching the high. And you end up just getting two legs, and then you kind of go sideways. And again, you can't enter out of this, even though that is that's a big, nice signal bar. But there's too big a chance we bounce back. I don't know what happened here. I'm sure they'll come up with some news item or something that Biden did or something somebody said that caused this, but who knows? It doesn't matter. They write the news to fit the price action, so it's not, when I was long ago, I used to think, follow the news, trying to catch something important with the market, but that's all BS. They write the news just to fit the market, so they'll find something somebody said or some rumor or something, and they'll use that to say that's what caused this. But even if you knew it in advance, it wouldn't do you a bit of good, because it'll do just the opposite of what you think it will. So don't even try to trade that stuff. The only thing you need to know about the news is knowing there's a high volatility news announcement coming out. Other than that, forget about it. But anyway, you come up, you get a first entry. There's actually a second entry short. That's just sideways. You can't go short there. But you get a lower high right here and a nice signal bar. The key is, do you have enough room here? And you do have enough room. It ends up not mattering. And with that sell-off that strong, and still being below the EMA, you're going to at least probably get a retest of that low at a minimum. But this thing goes on and makes another leg down. This is just one leg right here. And technically, I would probably measure that from where it started here, because that's just sideways. So that's really where that downtrend started. And if you look at it like that, we basically got a perfect to the tick measured move. So actually, maybe I need to adjust that a little bit. Yep. So maybe we didn't quite get to the tick. So we still missed it by a couple of ticks, but that's pretty dang close. That's good enough for me. And then we also had these two legs. So of course, actually no, I measured the range, as you can see right there. And you look for a measured move down on that range too, and it didn't even check up there. Just kept going. That's another good reason why you don't buy blind, because it doesn't always hold true. Most of the time it will. You'll get a bounce there, but this thing was really, this market was bearish. I don't know what happened, but somebody got spooked. Somebody had something happen. Be curious, like I said, be curious to see if there's what they come up with. But anyway, you get this second entry short, lower high right here. Another nice move down, and you would have caught a runner here. And then you get another second entry short. I think it actually ticks lower right here. I can't remember if I can't really tell if low right there is 800 and a quarter, and right there it's 800. So yeah, it does tick lower there, but that's your first real move. I'd still look, you can look at it as a lower high, but I'd still look at that like a second entry right there. It looks more like a hidden second entry and then a second entry short. This bearish market, that's the first break of this new kind of greenish channel. So you're going to test that low. So that's a good place to go short. And you get a failure here, and there is a hidden second entry there, but that signal bar is not very good. On a failure, it wouldn't matter, but we've moved a little far to be counting that, and we already have a new low in place. If there was a really good signal bar right there, I might say go short, but not on that. Then, of course, we bounce. No way you can go long there. There's a failed second entry short there. Not a good setup. And then we're just going sideways here. And then we get this little failed breakout right here. And really what you have is you made a low, you came back once, you came back twice, and this actually breaks lower than all three, and it fails and turns up and gives you a nice bullish bar. So you got plenty of room back to the high of the range. We're just playing range rules on this. And off it goes, and you actually get a little more. You actually get two legs up here. Lower high, not a very good setup though. Again, we're going sideways. There's actually a failure here, but it's on the wrong side of the EMA. It breaks higher and turns down. It's a possibility, but with this being a range, there's a good chance we're going to get back into it, which we do. I don't have it. Let's extend that right. And you can kind of see how we got back in that range. Tested the lows again. I didn't mark this one because we don't really have a break of that yet. That's the first close outside. It does confirm this trend line, but I just don't think that's enough information with this range. You don't know for sure you've got a channel here. It turns out to be a spike up in a two-tiered channel, but you just don't really have a lot of information at that point. This just looks like some sideways stuff. Again, you could go long right there, but it's just a little aggressive. Anytime you go long right in the middle of a range, there's a big question mark there because they tend to be squirrely areas. So, but notice what happens. We run up, we get a first entry short, we get a second entry short. This is a little congestive, but this is also a first entry and then a second entry long. We don't back up there, but we correct because we quit going higher. So even though we went higher, we stopped going higher for two more bars and then broke lower. So that's still a second entry long. It's a little different. So you might get that second leg up, and you do, of course. There's leg 1. There's leg 2. We actually went a little bit further than that, but that turns out to be a nice entry right there, and just trying to catch that next leg up. And there's another little second entry here. It's a possibility, but at that point, this looked like an overshoot. So I'd be a little leery about going long right there. It would have been notice we're working down first entry, and then we correct again because we made a lower high. So that's a second entry long right there. And it looked like it would have been, it was going to be a failure, but then it shoots on off there. It just kind of goes sideways. That's really congestive looking. Let me just draw it for those of you that are new that may not see that. You can see that little congestion area. And it's always throwing darts at the board when you enter in that stuff, especially when it's away from the EMA and you're going long away from the EMA as well. So we come back over here and we finally get a little move working down. We get a failure right here. It's not perfect, but it is a failed second entry long after 2 legs. It's a leg and then a second leg. And it is off the key entry point. So you may go short there. It's aggressive. Then you get a first entry, and then you get another first entry. There's a second entry short there, but we've already had a break and a new low. And, you know, this one is really an inside bar, so it's not a good setup anyway, even though it's a second entry. So just no entry there. And of course, we do bounce, and now you've really confirmed this trend line. You really confirmed it here, but no signal bar. Now for certain, you've got plenty of information to tell you, hey, this trend line is obviously pretty good. But no signal bar. I mean, you can't go long above that, especially below the EMA. It runs up, you get a second entry long right here, but again, no signal bar. So no trade on my chart. And then we run up and we end up breaking out the high. Is that the high side of the range right there? No, this is the low side of the range. We end up coming up here and breaking back into the range, but we fall out of it again right here. And really all you're playing right here is this little tight congestion area, and just get a failed breakout. That's a nice signal bar, plenty of room to scalp out. You're just looking for a scalp there. And if you get lucky on these, you know, I talk about this a lot, when you get these failures, they sometimes, if they're out the low side, they turn out to be important lows, and if they're out the high side, sometimes they turn out to be important highs. And so I like going long there. It is a second entry too. There's a double top. So first entry, second entry. We don't really look for second entries when playing a range, but if you get one with your setup, pay attention to it. And of course, there is a failure here, turns down, but it's just so congestive. The fact that it's an engulfing bar, you might go long right there. Again, it's just really, really aggressive, and that's a big bar. So if you're wrong, you're going to have a pretty good hit on your day. So I don't recommend it. And then you can't trade that stuff. And then we come down here and we just get in this bigger range. But notice what happens. We make a low, we test it once, and we test it twice, and we get that little failure just like right here. Take that trade because it might be an important low. And then actually it breaks lower right here and turns and goes out the other side. I like to trade that higher low on that engulfing bar. I don't think I'd wait and go long up here, but I do like going long on that engulfing bar right there, just because we've made all those lows and now we're making a higher low. And it did probably trap people when it went lower first and then turns back out. Comes back up and tests the high, no setup. Again, test the high. And generally you want to wait on a lower high, and that doesn't come till here, and I forgot to mark that one. It's right at 2 o'clock, but I like that trade. You're back in the range. I like going short there. I don't know which way it broke first. But if it did break to the lower side first and then come back and then trade all the way back down when it went back out that side again, I wouldn't mind I wouldn't have a problem going short. But I'd probably just wait on that bar and see what happens. And you see we are in the middle, and it does take a little while, but it works on out. And this is after 2 o'clock. So, but yeah, there's some pretty good trades here today, but you had to be patient, and that's what separates a average trader or even a bad trader from a good trader, is just being patient and waiting on the right setups and not chasing every move. Find the key entry points using our trend lines and our ranges and our congestion, and trade the key entry points. That's the secret sauce. that everybody misses. If you don't get a setup in the right place where you're expecting it, don't take a trade. So anyway, that's 20 minutes worth. I'm trying to keep these around 20 minutes. So I'm going to wrap it up, and we'll be back again to do it tomorrow. Hope you had a good trading day. I'll see you tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com.